They certainly want to keep us, off balance and confused. And this goes back, this is in their own documents, by the way, the powers that be, that they want to give the people so many points of view that we'll give up. We'll have so many different views that we won't be able to reason. I remember the Las Vegas shooting, and there were so many theories about that. It was real, it wasn't real, and the hospitals are full, the hospitals aren't full. And one talk show host was saying, let's massively call the hospitals and ask them if they have patients. And then as a nurse, I'm thinking, no, don't do that. You're going to really upset the hospitals if you they're busy enough. But then I was at the Red Pill Expo in 2019, and I met at dinner, and I met a girl who was at Las Vegas. She said, yeah, there were people dying to the left and the right of her. She was crawling away.
Minus 15 seconds.
Vehicle flight pressures.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Hello and welcome, independent researchers, skeptics, and all of humankind, to Shadow Citizen. Shadow Citizen will explore the shadows of an alternate reality. Your hosts, Rachael McIntosh.
Okay, we made it to the next interview of Shadow Citizen. This interview is with the very first person I ever interviewed on Shadow Citizen, author James Perloff. And I'm once again thrilled to be interviewing this guest because he's a wealth of knowledge. He's one of the best historians I know in real life. And he's got a new book that he's put out. And we're going to talk about that too. So, James, welcome back to Shadow Citizen, the new iteration of it.
Yeah, it's nice to be back on your resumed show, and it reminds me of the fact that we're doing this the day after the inauguration, and you and I were actually John B. Wells' guest on Election Day 2016.
That's right.
Everybody thought Hillary was going to win. We were his guests that morning. It was kind of interesting. So brings back some memories of that.
Yeah, I'm just glad they didn't have to shoot off the Patriot missile in this election. This inauguration. That was crazy when you saw all those troops. And then, did you see that? The picture of the missile launcher that was they had pulled it for the inauguration?
I didn't. I saw the troops, and some of them apparently had their backs to Biden, but as it was rolling through. But I didn't see the Patriot missile launcher. What was up with that?
It's called Oscar. It's like it looks like you know what it looks like? It sort of looks like, remember they used to roll the stairs up to the airplane at the airport? Mm-hmm. It looks like one of those things, but inside is the missile that's going to go out.
And so was this supposed to be part of the ceremony? Was it just to kind of show American military might?
I have no idea. When I saw that show, I was like, what the heck, man? Why not? It was just, I don't know. But I did see that video of the car going by and the troops all had their backs to Biden. And I was like, that really made me say, wow, that's big. If that really was taken from the motorcade.
Yeah, I had that question too. Yeah, it wasn't quite clear if that, I don't know how they would get that footage from his limo, but maybe it was a car in the convoy. I have no idea.
Yeah, that really made me go, oh, geez, we're not in a good state of affairs if that's what's going on. The other thing that made me think that something was probably amiss, during the inauguration, Jill Biden herself, as they're walking down the stairs, she seemed, in my opinion, she looked miffed. She looked kind of not, I mean, granted, everybody's wearing these masks. You can't tell if they're smiling or not, but she looked irritated. And I was wondering if she got the same sort of talk that Mrs. Trump got the day of the inauguration, which is, I don't know. And I saw other people suggesting that it had been pre-recorded, the whole thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's so much fake reality going on. There's so much Orwellian creation of events that never even happen, or that are pre-recorded and then later broadcast is presumed live. I have no idea what happened in this case, but yeah. What sort of talk did Melania get? I can't remember.
Somebody was saying that they gave, back then when you and I were talking to John B. Wells, they had said that she got the talking to that she's just the wife and she's not supposed to interfere and all this other stuff. And, just the basic thing. So
yeah.
She seemed, at least she looked like a little miffed. I was like, oh man, what's going on? Also, Biden himself looked like he was remember when he had broken his foot for like a day?
When his dog beat him up?
Yeah. And he was kind of walking like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Who knows what's really going on with him physically? We know mentally he's incapacitated and he's not going to last for long. And the deep state knows that very well. So they've already got picked out Harris's replacement. This has all been planned.
Yeah.
But
I was on Twitter watching the whole thing, and the counts, I believe it was at ABC or CBS, one of the national news. It wasn't NBC. It was either ABC or CBS. The view counts were going back. They were going wildly up and down, from either between 900 views or 31,000 views back to 2,700 views and it was going up and down, up and down, up and down. I was wondering what that was all about. And
sounds like the election.
Yeah, exactly. And then what was the other thing too? Oh, poor Biden's press secretary. Her first press conference she gave, it had, I just checked it today, it has 14,000 downvotes. So I guess things can only get better for that press secretary right now.
Well, she has something to look forward to.
Yeah. So that's where we're at right now with that. Also, last night I saw on Twitter, I'm off Facebook altogether right now. I'm on Twitter because it's easy to get in touch with people I want to interview. But last night on Twitter, I saw that somebody had posted that Q was calling it quits and saying it was all just a joke, all just entertainment. Now, who knows if that's the real Q, of course, but that right. Last night I was like, you know what? If this past election wasn't psychological warfare in every direction, like they had everybody going, the media, the Q phenomena, this just was just a tough on top of the COVID thing. This is a tough past year. So I'm really looking forward to 2021.
Yeah, I'm not, but I know a guy, I was at a Zoom meeting with some truther friends focusing on a certain topic I attend occasionally. And one guy was saying, this was like 2 days before the inauguration, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Trump's going to remain president. Biden's going to get arrested. And I got emails about this from various groups saying that, the swamp was going to be drained at the last moment, and I think, how can people really believe that? It's obviously not going to happen that way, but this is part of what Q was apparently. I'm not a student of Q at all, never was.
I couldn't follow it, to tell you the truth. I mean, I was interested, because I knew this group was out there and people be talking about it. So I would touch it and try to figure out what's going on. I was like, I can't even do it. I don't even know what's going on.
Right. Yeah. It appears they're trying to suppress any sort of opposition to Biden's inauguration by making people think that it's a secret insider group. And somebody did post something on Twitter that I thought was quite insightful. It was from the Bolshevik era in the Soviet Union, the early days of Lenin and Trotsky. And they were saying that there was this group called the Trust, which reminds you of Trust the Plan. And there's a group that claimed that within the Communist Party in the new Soviet Union, that there were these people who were really going to take control of the government and put everything back right again. And they were telling, don't worry, just trust the plan. Basically, not those exact same words, but the same phenomena. And so so a lot of white Russians held off because they thought that this superhero was going to emerge, who was going to fix things, and he never emerged because it's all arranged by the Bolsheviks themselves. So that's what more and more what this is looking like it's been.
Yeah, history repeats itself, huh? They don't have a lot of good plays, but when they get a good play, they keep it in the playbook. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But man, on top of that, like I said, now we have the COVID thing going on. I just looked at the numbers. I live in Rhode Island, and I just looked at the numbers. I've when it first last year hit the scene, I was religiously checking every day. I would watch the press releases. I watched the president. I watched the governor. I watched, what was going on. I was religiously checking all these numbers, which of course were so confusing to begin with too. And then it went from deaths, and then it went to cases. And now we've got this vaccine rolling out. And I know you got the same bug. Like, what the heck's going on? You ended up writing a book. So why don't you tell me what you've discovered?
That's a lot of ground. Sure. I was working on a book on 9/11 when the COVID thing hit, and this was a big book. I had over 800 pages of notes, and I had 16 chapters in rough draft, and a long ways to go still. And I'd written some things on 9/11. I was unhappy about it. I'd been too speculative, even though we got some good information in there and some good interviews with people with pilots and people with a lot of expertise. I said, I really want to get 9/11 right. But then COVID hit, and it became very clear, as I'm sure you recognize, that they had their foot on the accelerator. They're really using this to push the New World Order into place. Complete global reset, vaccinate the planet, population control. The whole thing is going down, and it's going down fast. And I said, this is an emergency. So I stopped writing the 9/11 book, and I wrote a blog post on COVID. And of course, new facts kept emerging every week. And so I'd add that to the post, and to help people identify what was new, I'd italicize it. But this got confusing. And I said, this post is getting too long for online reading. So I turned it into a book, COVID-19 and the Agendas to Come, Red Pilled, 207 pages long, 27 short chapters. Everything in the book is end noted. Everything is documented, because I know that the first word out of a skeptic's mouth is, isn't that fake news? Where'd you get that from? So this is in digital, and it's in paperback, but in the digital format, you can just click the link. It'll take you right to the article, right to the video. You can watch it for yourself and read it for yourself.
Nice.
So this is going to be provable information. And if they want to challenge the book, they can go ahead and challenge the people who wrote the original article. Challenge the professors at Oxford who said what they said. Don't just email me. And I indexed it, because I've always felt that books without an index that are nonfiction are a handicap for people. It's hard to find the information later.
Yeah.
And they worked flat out, literally for 3 months, morning, noon, and night. Actually, a little less than 3 months to get the book out, because I felt this was really a international emergency. And I uploaded the book onto Amazon August the 20th. I started it on the weekend of the George Floyd incident is when I started.
Oh, wow. You hit it there, right?
May the 25th was when I started to say, I've got to do something whether using this little distraction to get something in hard copy out there. And I honestly thought, Rachael, they were going to just censor the book out of the gate on Amazon. So I ordered my own printing, anticipating censorship. But to my delight, Amazon uploaded the book. And after 2 days, it was ranked number 254 of all books on Amazon, which I've never done.
Whoa, that's incredible. Congratulations. That is awesome.
But the credit to that really goes to Sean of SGT Report. because I said, I want to get some quick promo on this. And he did a quick 8-minute interview with me. And then that got the book a lot of attention. But I will say that the book maintained a high sales rank for 2 months. It sold over 3,500 copies. And it was often ranked #1 in respiratory diseases. They don't have a COVID category, but respiratory diseases ranked #1 on Amazon. And it received over 50 customer ratings, 92% 5-star, 8% 4-star, and not one person gave it 1, 2, or 3 stars. So I said, this book is selling well. I better make it into a digital book. So the person that usually does this for me was no longer doing it. So I sought out on the internet who's the best digital conversion company. And they were available. And I worked flat out with them for 4 days. But before I did that, I went through every endnote and every hyperlink to make sure it's still active. So if something was linked to YouTube and YouTube had censored it, I made a new endnote where it's linking to BitChute so people could still click and still get the information. Then, so I worked flat out for 4 days, get this ebook ready. Then October the 15th, I was going to this is the night before I was going to upload it to Amazon as a Kindle Amazon book. And I got an email at 7 o'clock in the evening, and it said, we've temporarily removed your book from sales because you did not clarify whether or not you hold certain rights to this book in overseas territories. And this was insane because you cannot upload a book onto Kindle print on demand, Amazon's print on demand service, unless you specify your rights. You have to specify your rights or the computer won't even let you progress to the next page. Exactly. You have to do that. And I have screenshots that prove that I indicated my rights. But they were saying, you've got to resubmit your book with your rights. So I was trying to do that, but they were blocking me from getting into my book. And I figured a way to trick the system and get into the book anyway.
Oh, good.
So I was working on trying to comply with the request. And then 2 hours after the first email, I got another email. And now they're censoring the book completely, permanently, forever for an entirely different reason. Now it wasn't about rights. They said that I'd violated their content guidelines. Oh. And so naturally, Mike, since everything in the book is documented, everything is endnoted, every statement, every statistic is documented. And Amazon obviously doesn't have epidemiologists who are able to refute any of this. So I said, okay, so what content guidelines did I violate? So
did you get a person to even talk to you, or were you?
No people. This was actually unusual. Usually when KDP, Kindle publishing talks to you, they will at least have a person sign their first name, but these letters were totally anonymous. So this may have just been one person who had been told to kill my book. It's either grasping at straws because first they had one reason and then they thought of another reason to kill the book. Within 2 hours, they came up with a totally different reason. So obviously they were just looking for a reason to kill the book, but they didn't actually have any substance to what they're saying. So in answer to my query, they said, quote, we've reviewed your book and found that it is in violation of our content guidelines and will not be an offering it for sale on Amazon. We reserve the right to determine whether content provides a poor customer experience. Well, I'm thinking, wait a minute, 92% of their customers give it 5 stars and 8% 4 stars and nobody below that. So how can they say it's a poor customer experience? But of course, I sent them follow-up emails hoping to get the book back onto Amazon because actually I do like their service,
Yeah, everybody to it, yeah.
I mean, their distribution is incomparable. You can upload a book and within 2 days, the book is available. 3 days after I uploaded the book and published it, I got an email from a guy in Japan who had already read it because Amazon all over the world have got print on demand printers, and all over the world, as long as the country's got Amazon, they can print it out. So that was really cool. And I fought, but then it became hopeless. And about 4 days after they censored it, my own printing rolled in. So I had to change hats. Now I'm not an Amazon, receiver of Amazon royalties. Now I'm a publisher, but I've been used to that. I've published my own books before. I have my own ISBN numbers. I never used Amazon ISBNs. I don't want them having any kind of control over my work. So I have my own printing rolled in, and the book had already been picked up by Power of Prophecy in Texas, and then it really backfired on Amazon because Russia Today, Global Research, Zero Hedge, and American Free Press all did stories on Amazon censoring the book, which gave it big publicity. And the first printing actually sold out before I could get the second printing in.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love this story. I love it.
Yeah. And I'm used to being a publisher. I know how to invoice. I have boxes of all sizes, and I offer bulk discounts, and I immediately converted everything into being the publisher. But the one way that they kind of hurt me on this was they had been acting as the distributor for mainstream other bookstores like Barnes and Noble and Books A Million.
Right, yeah.
So when Amazon cut it off, a lot of people found, I can't buy it on Barnes and Noble either. Barnes and Noble has censored it. That was not true. It's just that Amazon cut off the supply. But I was able very quickly to hire my own distributor. And you know how the system works. Ingram is the bookstore distributor in America. But if you're a small publisher like me, Ingram doesn't want to talk to you. They haven't got time for you. Although there was a time when they did, about 20 years ago, they had a small publisher program, but they canceled it. So I was able to hire my own mainstream supplemental distributor, which supplies Ingram, which then supplies Barnes and Noble. And they got it back into Books A Million and all these other bookstores. They got it into Indigo in Canada. They got it where I'd never even heard of this. They got it into the Book Depository in the United Kingdom, which ships to the world for free. There's worldwide free shipping. And that's the big problem, trying to ship these books. And I've had emails from people in Europe. They say, I want to buy your book, but the shipping is so expensive from America. But the UK's Book Depository, they raise the base price a little bit, but they deal in volume and they ship for free all over the world.
Forever. Oh, that's
so that was really cool.
I got to take that note down. Okay, good.
Yeah, Book Depository. If I could give you the name of you probably won't need them. My distributor is very, very good.
No, I'd love to. Afterwards, we could have a jam session about that. All right, excellent. So right now, keep it going. So you got it where it needs to be. It's getting out into the world.
Yeah, but the other thing was what to do with the digital version, because just before I was going to upload it, Amazon canceled it. So, I could have gone to Shopify or something and tried to sell it there, but I said, you know what? The world's in an emergency. Let's make this a free ebook. The company that converted it to a digital book made it into Mobi, which worked with any Kindle device, and EPUB. And then one of my readers just voluntarily converted it into a PDF. And this is not just a regular PDF. It's like an ebook. All the hyperlinks automatically work, all the external and internal hyperlinks. So there's 3 formats available, EPUB, which is very popular, Mobi for Kindle, and PDF, which is what people ask for the most because it's the simplest. And I made that a free ebook. And I've had literally thousands of requests from all over the world, South America, South Africa, Australia, all over Europe, the Middle East, the Far East, for this free ebook. And Rachael, something that really struck me that I had never, I always knew how much economic damage this lockdown was doing, because I talk about this in the book.
Yeah.
And I should probably talk about what the book is about. We haven't even talked about that.
Yeah, but keep going.
But we're talking about the censorship issue. But there were so many people have written to me, said, I couldn't even afford to buy an ebook right now because I've been out of work for 8 months. I got a letter from a waitress in Pennsylvania. She's not worked a day since the lockdown began on Friday the 13th of March of 2020. And so many people, I know it's not so bad for people who are white collar and they got a computer job and they can work from home. But for people who work regular blue collar jobs, they're really hit hard. Their unemployment's run out. And of course, this whole thing is leading to the great reset that they want, where there'll be the cashless society and all of that. But anyway, if for my followers who might be watching the show, let me just mention that you are also an excellent author, and you worked in the defense industry, and your first book was Little Yellow Stickies.
That's right.
And your series of Security Through Absurdity. And I was stunned. I already knew you as a friend, but I had no idea that you were such an outstanding writer. And of course, you turned your experience in the defense industry. You told what was going on, but you fictionalized it for legal reasons. But that's a book that should be selling a lot more copies. And by the way, if Hollywood wasn't so darn controlled, this would have made a absolutely dynamite movie. I know you worked on the screenplay.
Thank you so much for mentioning all that. I didn't realize you were going to say that, but thank you so much, because the next book, which is in that series, called The Peanut Butter Pipeline, which is the 4th book in the series, we can do an interview with John B. Wells and Sean at SGT about what happened with that, which that's a whole nother ball of biscuits going on with that. So that book should be out within probably a month or so. Book 4, The Peanut Butter Pipeline. And that one is the one that would be a Hollywood movie, because it's got a lot of action in it. And, and it does relate to what we're living through right now, I believe.
Well, one of my favorite scenes, I think, with your 3rd book was, and I don't remember if this was actually something that we just talked about or actually happened, but with, like, at the end of the movie, it's at Goldman Sachs. And I think that the Goldman Sachs sign explodes or something like that. There's a shooter. I'm sorry, it's not fresh in my mind, but it was like a really good ending. Maybe you ended up changing that. I can't remember. But
Goldman Sachs sign explodes. No, that's not in my movie, because I don't actually mention the Goldman Sachs sign in books.
Okay.
However, Heartbreaker is on the roof of Bank of America. She's a sniper on the roof of Bank of America.
Oh, yeah. Bank of America, right? Yeah, I like the Goldman Sachs better.
Yeah, I know, do you? That's
everybody.
Okay.
They hate all the big banks, but they really hate Goldman Sachs.
Yeah,
I just thought that was
shows up in this book, this Peanut Butter Pipeline. Don't worry, I pull them in.
Is this the Serbian sniper, the one that
she's in there too?
She was uptight about her shoes or something like that. The shoe store. Okay.
Yeah, Heartbreaker. She's in here too. Kind of
that was a great. And people should know that much of what takes place in this book, not necessarily that scene, but a lot of the things you write about in your book are fictionalized things that you really did see working for one of America's top 6 defense industries.
Yeah.
So,
and I didn't see
what you're talking about.
I blow up in that. Yeah, and as a defense contractor, I did not see that happen at all. However, you're exactly right. Everything in the series, especially those first 3 books, especially the first book where I'm working at the defense contractor, that was so easy to write, because all I had to do was just remember what these people actually said. So all the people in that book, that first book, have the same initials as they do in the real life. So,
Right. Yeah. So you came as close to reality as you legally could. And there's even some stuff about 9/11 in there, which was interesting.
Thank you so much for turning this whole interview around.
I don't want to excite our viewers too much, but you actually saw the blueprints for Building 7 before 9/11 happened at a conference. But I know that just so people won't get too excited, you didn't see enough of it you were told something about the building could be imploded, but it's it was not important at the time, and it's not something that you have exact details of. They didn't have written down.
I was looking at the symbols on the website, because there were little symbols for like the gas lines and everything, and there was a symbol on it, and I didn't know what that symbol meant. I didn't know what this building even was. I was just like, oh, what's that symbol? He goes, well, see right here. And he followed the finger down. He said, this is where the building, if it fell down, it would fall down this line. I was like, oh, okay.
That sounds pretty much like what happened. There's even a video of Building 7 following, where there does seem to be some sort of centralized line that the collapse is following. But anyway, that's
a whole other. We can do a whole bunch of interviews about 9/11. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's what brought me into this whole, but it wasn't, it wasn't that day, of course, because, but it's, as I lived through more and more and more, that was what brought me to become a shadow citizen, and why I'm interviewing people like you. And I also had an experience with Amazon too. So I'm just thrilled that you had you were able to pull through and hit even more people. That's wonderful.
You had, didn't somebody pirated your book right away, off the top of the bat, right?
Yeah. It was, I saw it for sale on Amazon for over $1,000. I saw one. Then I started taking screenshots. Then I saw one there were a couple for $600. I saw a bunch of times, and then I would see them show up. They were normal price, but I wasn't getting any kickback from any of it. I was like, what the heck's going on? So we had to do a reprinting. It was nuts. And then it turned out, I was in Walmart. I was like, this is freaking awesome. I'm in Walmart. And then it turned out it wasn't. It was a pirated copy that was at Walmart.
Yeah, that was really crazy that happened. My experience was very mild and different from that. But when I published my book, Truth is a Lonely Warrior, which is that was 2013, but still long after I met you. You and I have known each other for a long time now. The day that I published Truth is a Lonely Warrior on Amazon, that very day, there were people offering used copies for like over $100. And I'm thinking, I just offered it for today. How can they possibly have a used copy? And I was like, these people must be trying to sucker people into buying a used, non-existent used copy. Then they'll buy a new one from Amazon and sell it for $100. They're hoping somebody will actually be dumb enough to do that. I assume that doesn't happen very often, but I guess that's one way that people try to make money. But yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on in the book marketing selling business.
Yeah, I even had a lawyer, a really expensive lawyer for a little bit for this Amazon thing. And I was not Amazon, the Walmart thing. And I was like, you just got to put up your hands. Be like, I can't beat them. So okay, it passed. I literally called up Walmart myself and explained that I'm the author of this book. And I found out too that Amazon and Walmart online, it's the same deal. When you go to Walmart online and you buy something, it's just like going to an Amazon store. These people are setting up shop on Walmart like people set up shop on Amazon.
Oh, that's interesting because my distributor, when my distributor started to distribute my book to mainline bookstores, they were saying that, well, it's being blocked initially because Ingram has some kind of print-on-demand service, and they had the book. And I said, wait a minute, I've never signed up with Ingram print-on-demand. And apparently, he said apparently there's some kind of incestuous, let me just say this speculation. I don't want to make some legal statement that later,
right, of course,
Ingram will say there's no such thing
as this.
He says, let me put it this way. He suspected there was an incestuous relationship between Ingram and Amazon, that Amazon print on demand books, in order to get them into bookstores faster, Ingram would start printing out using the same software. Perhaps. I don't know that really happens. This is all speculation. I don't want to make a statement that later on I could be held accountable for, but there was something going on between Ingram and Amazon that it
makes sense.
Didn't fully understand.
Yeah, it makes sense. They're both huge companies, Right. So, all right. So back to your actual book. Now the actual book, because I saw how you set up the chapters. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where you want to jump in with, because you did say it's a huge amount of information you compiled in that. Did you want to just cut to the chase and tell us at the end when you're talking about where we're headed? Or because most people that are tuned into this interview with you and me probably already know a lot of the stuff about.
Oh, sure. Well, let me just.
Wherever you want.
I organized it into 27 chapters. And so like the first part of the book is on the lockdown, because the lockdown, nobody can dispute that the lockdown is happening. You can dispute what causes COVID, but you can't dispute the lockdown. So I have chapters on the health impact, the civil liberties impact, the economic impact. And every time a new piece of news would come in, I would file it under that category and become part of that chapter, right? If it was significant information. And I also have a mask and social distancing chapter. And then I get into how they panicked the public. This is the second section of 5 in the book. And I talk about how we've seen worse pandemics. Even in my lifetime, the 1957 Asian flu killed over 1 million people. And you got to remember, the world population back then was only 2.8 billion. So that's like 3 million today. So why was there no lockdown back then? But I also talk about fake stories in the news media, people claiming to have COVID when they didn't. I talked about how they conflated COVID. I have a chapter on how they conflated COVID with other diseases, how the whole Imperial College fake modeling from Neil Ferguson, who wound up Dr. Lockdown and was having a relationship with a married woman, violating his own guidelines, right? And then I have a chapter on how they interfere with death certificates, and a chapter on the nursing home controversy, and a chapter on testing, particularly PCR. And then the third part is about the theories. And this is something I really wanted to be very careful with, Rachael, because, you know, one of the big mistakes we made with 9/11 was we'd grab onto a theory about how 9/11 happened, then we start rejecting other theories, even though those theories had some logic to them, right? And I said, I don't want to get into any infighting on this. I'm not going to adapt one theory and make it my own. So I have a chapter on bioweapon, a chapter on 5G, I have a chapter on other theories, including Andrew Kaufman, Dr. Stephanie Seneff of MIT, who thinks it has to do with airborne glyphosate, Zach Bush. I wanted to give everybody an open voice. Let's just make this an open courtroom. This is not a settled matter, but there are different theories, and I think that they're worth hearing about. And then the fourth part is what the real end game of COVID is. We have chapters on population reduction, which has been a goal for ages. That's nothing new. I have a full chapter on Bill Gates, one on the global vaccines, and I have one called 8 Reasons Why We Don't Need a COVID Vaccine. And there are a lot of good reasons. And a ninth chapter, another chapter, which is on a ninth reason, just on hydroxychloroquine, which so many doctors, including Simone Gold, who was just arrested, has advocated the use of. Then I have chapters on global ID, one on the cashless society and the Great Reset, and one on contact tracing and the surveillance state. And then the end of the book, we lay out potential scenarios for the future. And the last chapter is called Hope and Encouragement, because there is a lot of awakening taking place in the midst of all this. They're not boiling the frog this time like they usually do. They look at the front of the accelerators. So a lot of people are being jolted awake. And one thing I've noticed, Rachael, is that people, if they're personally affected by something, become a lot more interested. There was once a Red Sox player who got a disease, and he then his life became dedicated to fighting that particular disease. And parents who have autistic children, they become a lot more concerned about vaccines and autism once they're personally affected by it. And I think people who have been hurt by the lockdown, they're a lot more willing to listen to this book. Again, the title is COVID-19 and the Agendas to Come, Red Pill. I didn't want to think it was just about the past. It's also about what may happen in the future. But I think a lot of people are open to being red pilled now because they have really suffered personally at the hands of this pandemic. So that's what the book is about. It tends to be very complete. And I should also add something, which is that on my website, jamesperloff.com, I've got an update page, and it's got dozens of stories that are broken. For example, when I wrote this book, Rainer Fulmich, the famous German attorney, had not yet begun his class action lawsuits. And a story came out that absolutely, it was mind blowing, but it was written by the editor of Hazmat magazine. He's been the editor of that magazine for 25 years, and talked about the dangers of wearing masks and how these surgical masks have carcinogens. That's significant, but it came out after my book. But I said, I'll put it on the updates page. Yeah. So, and we just had in the past week, it's been about a week or so now, we had a report out of China that in a study of 10 million people, they couldn't find one case of asymptomatic transmission of COVID. What do you know? Not one case. So why are we wearing masks and standing 6 feet apart? Oh, I'll mention one more thing. This is
go ahead. And if we need to go over, we'll go over, because
this is personal. This is not my in my book or in my updates page. But my wife is from Taiwan, and as of last July, with a population of 24 million, they had a total of 7 deaths. And and they've never been in lockdown. All the churches, businesses, and schools have stayed open, and they can't socially distance because they'd be standing out in the ocean if they tried to. It's a small country. They're already packed together.
Yeah.
So the other day I asked my wife, can you find out since July, did any more people die in Taiwan from COVID? 0. So in the course of more than half a year, not a single person in the entire country of Taiwan without any lockdown has died from COVID. So when they tell you need a lockdown, you don't need a lockdown.
Yeah, this is not, well, you saw that thing I posted on Twitter of that movie from 1979.
Oh, I was so glad you did that. I never saw, it was called the the Hamburg Syndrome.
Yes.
And it has English subtitles. And the clip you referenced had like 9 minutes. But I was amazed. They got people saying, but I'm not sick. Why do I have to be vaccinated? And they say, it doesn't matter. You can't prove you're not sick. And they stick her. And then I'm not sure, but it looks like that scene with these bankers that are standing around at a cocktail party and they're bragging about all the money they're going to make off this pandemic. And then at the end, there's this doctor who seems very rational. And it looks, I guess he's talking to his girlfriend or his wife, and he's saying, there's many ways a disease can be spread, not just infection. It could be spread by radioactivity. And he gives other examples. And I'm thinking, wow, 79, they came out with this. I mean, there's a lot of predictive programming that's taken place every 9/11. I did more than a dozen.
I saw it's just like, oh, yeah, radioactivity. Yeah, and then people are making fun of the people that are thinking it's related somehow to the introduction of 5G. What is 5G? It's
right.
Microwaves. It's microwave radiation. That's what 5G is, just as all the cell towers and all this Wi-Fi stuff that were. So maybe they did change up something. I don't know. That's why I'm, they try to make the 5G thing sound like crazy Kookmeyer stuff, but you know what? That is a new thing that's been introduced to our environment.
Right, and they didn't slow it down. Would you think with all the economic distress, shouldn't they be slowing it down? Do we really need faster downloads of movies? If you're hardwired, by the way, you can download a movie in an instant. You don't need 5G to do that. And there's already so much documented evidence of the physical harm from 4G, from the cancer, heart irregularities, lowered sperm counts, DNA damage. There's an incredible amount of documented evidence. And you've probably seen the clip where Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut was interviewing leaders from the telecom industry. And he asked them what safety testing has been done. And they kind of beat around the bush and try to tap dance. And then finally they admit there's not been a single test done. There hasn't been a safety test done since 2G back in 1996.
Well, wait, I'm gonna correct you on that. The military has tested. See, 5G is a branded. It's like Band-Aid or Kleenex. That microwave has been tested since like the 1950s, but they didn't call it 5G. And the United States and Russia exchanged this information back then.
Wasn't that nice of them?
They've known
in the middle of the Cold War, huh?
The other thing too is that since everybody's the worldview that you just expressed, like, oh, there's not enough testing. I just read a report out of, I believe, Australia, and they made a graph of how many times 5G was used in a study, and there was, because people are like, oh, we want to know about 5G. So they saw this. I think there were 8, and that they were able to put together that had been studying 5G, that they could, like, scientific studies that used the term 5G, and 78% of those studies showed significant harm.
Yeah, so I definitely believe that 5G can be related in that if so far a lot of people are resisting taking the vaccines. I keep reading more and more reports where the majority of people in hospitals and nursing homes that work at them are refusing it. So they're probably going to have to up the ante and actually do more, I hate to say it, but do more actual killing to scare the population. Because apparently the people aren't scared enough, despite the media panic headlines, which people know are bull. How could the flu disappear due to social distancing and masks, but COVID's getting worse? Even though we're doing social distancing. There's so many dystopian things we're hearing that make no sense at all.
I know, and I just want people to live life, for God's sakes. I'm sure everybody wants it too, but it's hard to do when they keep gaslighting us like this. It really feels like we're being psychologically abused. Yeah,
and it's getting worse and worse year by year. Last year was by far the worst. They really pushed it up. I mean, 2019 is like the good old days now, but this year I expect, now they've not only got the 5G in place and the COVID vaccine being deployed, but now they've got an administration that's, I'm going to say, swampier than the last one. We've got some crazies that are getting aboard, and Biden has no clue as to what he's doing. He's obviously being, being told what to do and what to think, because he can't think for himself. And I've written an article on that, by the way, comparing how they used getting rid of Nixon to bring in Nelson Rockefeller to the White House. I have a feeling that Harris's replacement as vice president has undoubtedly already been selected, and they're just waiting for the right moment to ease Biden out, because it'll soon become obvious. I mean, it's obvious now, but the mainstream media has not been calling attention yet. But they'll get rid of him, I think, soon enough, unless they find it convenient to have an idiot. Which isn't the first time we've had an idiot in the White House. But may they find it convenient to keep an idiot there and keep running him from behind the scenes, or maybe they will ease him out. I have a feeling that they will ease him out, because I don't see how he could possibly last 4 months, let alone 4 years.
I don't know. I saw a clip of him signing some of these executive orders, and somebody made a comment that if this was shown as him signing his will in a court of law, the court of law would say, no, this doesn't count. Because he's like trying to push the other bill out of the way to fit. And then the next bill, he kind of lets hang over the edge, and he's pretending to read it, and then he signs it. And it's just obvious. He's just going through the motions.
Yeah, I've never seen this situation before, where we actually had a president who was really in the early stages of dementia. Usually they're at least somewhat eloquent, even if they're liars. But this is the first time I've seen this situation. It is just strangeness upon strangeness this past year and a half.
Yeah. And then, of course, with the January 6th rumble up at the Capitol there, that was, and I saw somebody document the amount of stories about the Patriot Act 2, the preconditioning for that rumble that we saw, how they kept saying, we need something about, because, domestic terrorism is so bad. And I forget where I saw it. Was in Vox? I'm not sure, but somebody listed all the preconditioning for that thing to happen, for them to instantly roll out Patriot Act 2 or say that's necessary.
What's ironic, Rachael, is that after Antifa and Black Lives Matter burned down much of Seattle, Minneapolis, and Portland, the reaction was defund the police. And it's like the exact opposite. We don't need more protection. We need less. We need less police. And now it's like, okay, we've got this minor event where apparently this guy that looked like a Wookiee that went in and stole Nancy Pelosi's podium. I don't know if you saw the film footage of that, but the guard let him in to do that. He was permitted to do it. And the whole thing was clearly, well, for the most part, a psyop. I didn't study it as much as other people did.
Yeah, I think so too. When we get this on my website, Shadow Citizen, what we're doing is we're going to have a link tree under each interview so that people can add documentation to what we're talking about, not so much comment. Just
good. Okay.
Here's a document. And somebody, I think it was ProPublica, they did a timeline of, I don't know how they did this. Obviously, they must have collected everybody's cell phone coverage, and they made a map of all the different cell phone coverage images, like movies that they got from everywhere. It's like hundreds of them. And then they made a timeline of them so you could see how things were progressing if you were in that crowd. And it's just some of them are just little snippets of like, and I saw one where they have the fencing set up around, this is at the very beginning, the fencing set up, and somebody dressed in black with a black ski mask, there was a couple people, pulled it aside and was like waving people to come through. And this woman with a Trump flag went down, and she went in there, and then she turned around, she went back up, and she put the Trump flag down, and she got some more people to come down. But that was just like a short thing, and you can go through. I'll put up the link. It's a fantastic job, whoever did this. I don't know if they scooped all this from the servers, or if people handed stuff in willingly, but this is amazing. People will be studying that for a long time. Yeah,
seems like we're really in a wag the dog world, and I've seen more videos put up about how events that never happened are now being broadcast as the news, just as you remember how they did that in Wag the Dog with the war in Albania that didn't exist. And that was 1997. They were already showing us how they're going to run these things. And it seems like recently, the past year and so especially, the media is just disconnected from reality. It's just whatever agenda they want to push, they push, whether it matches facts or not. The age of journalism and news reporting is gone. It's all editorial now. It's all opinion fomenting. It has nothing to do with factual reporting. And this is why this is why alt media is the last line of defense, and why we've had this tremendous purge of alt media in the past year, and especially over these past weeks.
Yeah. What was I going to say? The other thing too is with that thing at the thing at the Capitol,
Mm-hmm.
people were claiming that they were seeing Antifa go in, and those people then got pulled out and were like, here's what's driving me crazy is people are absorbing the news based on their preconceived notions of things. So if I'm talking to people if I'm talking to somebody trying to figure out what happened, and I say that could have been an Antifa member, or it could have been, I don't know, people are like, you're crazy. And then I'm not arguing with people. And I hate arguing. I'm always just trying to figure out things, and I'm debating stuff in my own mind. But it's gotten to such a point where they've made it that if you even question the official narrative, as they did with 9/11, you're obviously a kookmeyer. You're on the other side. I hate that.
Right. Yeah. And this, and I like your approach. We need to be really analytical. And that's why I say with this book on COVID, I'm trying to not take positions, and I'm not trying to get in fights with anyone. It was kind of similar with QAnon, and I've seen this happen with conservative movements in the past. I've had a lot of friends and followers who were big with QAnon. I never, like you, I never studied it. My gut feeling was that it was a psyop, but it was not something that I had studied to the extent that I felt I had expertise in it. But we see the major predictions not coming true, and if that thing where Q signed off, as you mentioned, is true, then that means it was a psyop. But history.
Or it could be that the psyop is that's a fake Q signing off. Like I've heard of.
Right.
Oh no,
right.
Q would never do that. That's a psyop. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, why not? Psyop inside of a psyop. Okay.
Yeah, well, they certainly want to keep us, off balance and confused. And this goes back. This is in their own documents, by the way, the powers that be, that they want to give the people so many points of view that we'll have so many different views that we won't be able to reason. I remember the Las Vegas shooting, and there were so many theories about that. It was real, it wasn't real, and the hospitals are full, the hospitals aren't full. And one talk show host was saying, let's massively call the hospitals and ask them if they have patients. And then as a nurse, I'm thinking, no, don't do that. You're going to really upset the hospitals if they're busy enough. But then I was at the Red Pill Expo in 2019, and I met at dinner, and I met a girl who was at Las Vegas. She said, yeah, there were people dying to the left and the right of her. She was crawling away. I said, okay. And then John Rappaport, he wrote on Las Vegas. He had an interesting viewpoint. He says it's probably that they sometimes use a mix of crisis actors plus reality. And then they get the rest of us all fighting, some of us saying, hey, that was just a psyop, and other people saying, no, it was real. And we can't make up our minds because they know that it was a mixture of both.
Yeah.
And
one of the people that I interviewed, Kurt Haskell. I just interviewed.
Oh yeah. I remember Haskell. Yeah.
I interviewed him about Charlottesville and about Las Vegas. Las Vegas. Okay. Both events, he said, in his opinion, were a mixture of crisis actors and real people getting hurt.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Haskell is someone I would trust on that. He was the guy with the shoe bomber, right?
Yeah.
That was what got him into the truth movement.
Yeah.
Now he's down in Costa Rica, right?
Yeah, he ran for Senate or Congress or something, and then he found the Democratic Party just basically steamrolled him, even though he had won the primary. They didn't want
him.
And then
he's an attorney, right?
Yeah, and he's
an attorney. Yeah, he's a logical guy. He's got a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah. So, but what I was going to say was, both of my interviews with him, Shadow Citizen interviews, got purged.
What the one just last night?
No, the one about Charlottesville was
that
was the very first one that got purged, because as a lawyer, he just sat there and went through the YouTube evidence and why it would be possible to make it. Not that he was fighting he was just showing evidence that would maybe make a jury say, I don't think this is real. So they pulled that right off of YouTube. And then later they pulled, I don't know when it was, but somebody alerted me that it wasn't on anymore. It was the Vegas thing. And they didn't like that either, because he said, I really think there was both going on. And then that's when I realized, I think it's magic. And we've had this conversation about 9/11 too. I really think they're doing Vegas style magic on the crowds, and it's for the people at home too. Mm-hmm. Like the thing they just did in, the thing that blew up Nashville, and the truck there that like supposedly blew up and all. Remember it was the camper that blew up in Nashville recently. Mm-hmm. It didn't, there was no, bomb, like a camper that blows up still has like an axle and big heavy things that even if it started on fire and blew up, there'd be something sitting there. There was nothing sitting there. It was literally like it just went poof, like this big explosion happened to the side of the camper. Next thing you know, the camper's gone. And I was like, you know what? I think they've been doing magic on us all along. Yeah, and it sounds crazy, but I really do. I've talked to you about this with the 9/11. I really think they're doing Vegas style magic.
One of my things with 9/11 was trying to scientifically resolve everything. And I mean, scientifically resolve it by talking to Boeing engineers and pilots, commercial, veteran pilots, people with real expertise. And we looked at ways to get the planes to make those bullseye hits on 9/11. And we looked at the Boeing uninterruptible pilot. And we looked at the trying to hack into the flight management system. And we looked at you can land a plane at pinpoint in a fog in London on an air. But you know what? To do that, you've got to have on the ground an array of antennas, which they couldn't have had at the Pentagon, or the World Trade Center, not unless they had an amazing setup. We looked at every rational method of making those planes hit pinpoint. And, the planes had to hit pinpoint or they couldn't collapse the towers. They couldn't just partly hit they had to be bullseyes. But every rational, mechanical, known method, we hashed it over for months. And I have to tell you the truth, we could not find a satisfactory method. And so that's why I believe that there's a technology that is sort of from another, I won't say another dimension, but it's not known to us. And I kind of starting to accept that for 9/11. And of course, one of the difficulties with my book would be trying to present that in a credible way to people. But we really, I have to tell you that I honestly, talking with experts, have been over very exhaustively the methods of hitting those targets. And those pilots did not have, they had some pilot training, but not enough to guarantee hits that had to be guaranteed on that day. So I think we are dealing, and even I could even go back in time to other events like the Lusitania, and there are things about the Lusitania that are not as easy to explain as you would think. For example, people in London were boasting on the day the Lusitania sank that the Lusitania was going to be sunk by a German sub. The thing was that the German sub had only 2 torpedoes left, and the U-boat commander only fired 1 torpedo. He wanted to keep 1 torpedo for defense on his way home. How the heck did the people in London know that the U-boat commander wasn't out of torpedoes? There was something demonic. There was something on another realm going on, even 100 years ago, for some of these false flags, that I could explain 90% of it through science and statements people made and things like that. But there's still an extra dimension that is inexplicable about how they're so confident. And the same thing goes for the USS Maine, I might mention too. That's never been adequately explained. That started the Spanish-American War. So yeah, I think that we're dealing with things that are from a spiritual plateau and that are, as you say, magic. Some people are pointing out that some of the magic tricks we see on TV, it isn't just that they're using sleight of hand, it's that there is something demonic going on where they really do make something disappear, and trying to figure it out, like, okay, what did he do to the elephant to make it go away?
Right, the elephant. And then there's one of the
there's something else going on.
There's a trolley car one that they show how to do that too. I think I only really got that in my head after I brought my kids to go see the magician Chris Angel, who is like, he's got this like rock and roll kind of Vegas style to him. He looks like he's kind of, he's down with this whole, it's not like his logo and everything. It's not like it's not like a pentagram or anything, but it's an A, and it looks like everything's sort of based off of the kind of creepy satanic stuff, but it's not, it's Vegas, it's entertainment, but he's so good. I was like, this is what they did to us. Because obviously it's a show and they use a lot of technology in his show. And
right.
Yeah, I think
there's no question that technology can also explain some phenomena that we're looking at. Yeah. Advanced technology that we may not be versed in. Yeah. But I think there's a spiritual element to some of these things. Yeah. Certainly not all of them, but some of them. I don't think that, I don't think that the people over Moderna are smart enough to figure out these DNA altering vaccines. I think they got a little help from other places. If you've ever been, I don't know if you're familiar with Steve and Yana, Israeli News Live. Yeah. Oh, they're absolutely amazing. I have the greatest respect for them.
I'll have to check it out.
Israeli News Live, Steve and Yana Ben Noon. And I've been on their show twice now, but what got my attention was one was writing my 9/11 book that said there are beings in Israel, and Steve Ben Noon, who's been studied in Israel and has contacts with the Mossad, said that his contacts with Mossad tell him there are beings in Israel with an IQ of over 1,000, and these are not normal human beings. And so I wrote to him and I said, could you ask your contact if these beings had anything to do with 9/11? And the contact sent some kind of cryptic message that he couldn't figure out, and we didn't know what that was, because he wouldn't give himself away to his own overlords or whatever. But there's some pretty strange phenomena going on. And I have no doubt that the magic shows that are taking place now are part of this strangeness that we're in. Every year is getting stranger in America. And, I made a meme of Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz saying, Toto, I don't think we're in America anymore. It's not like the America we used to know. It's getting weirder and stranger all the time. And with the Biden administration and this guy who doesn't know what he's doing, and he's bringing back, he's got Janet Yellen and his Treasury Secretary, and he's got this transgender from Pennsylvania as his assistant health secretary, who brought his or her own mother out of an assisted care facility when COVID hit early in the spring, and put her his or her mother in a hotel while thousands were dying. That's going to be our assistant health secretary, a guy who betrayed his own thousands of people to death in his own state. It's craziness we're looking at. I'm not looking forward to this year, to the future at all, but I'm glad that we still have a voice, and I'm glad that we can still fight.
I am so thrilled, though, that we were able to communicate, and we're going to keep communicating, okay, you and me, because this is important. And I do want a whole network to start here. I don't know if you've heard the introduction I did for Shadow Citizen. But
I did not. I saw you sent. I did not see it. I'm sorry.
okay, yeah, no. Basically, what we're doing here is we're interviewing people who are smart and creative, and I'm going to be setting up, like I said, the link trees underneath the interview so people can contribute actual documentation to what we're talking about.
Excellent.
And on top of that, we'll have chat rooms where so people can talk about this topic. But long view, I'm going to be hooking people up with virtual private networks or peer-to-peer messaging so that we can just communicate directly with people without having to deal with, Facebook or Parler or whoever. You're a Shadow Citizen, I'm a Shadow Citizen, we get to talk and we can create a network to like a safety net for us while we try to creatively get ourselves out of this box they've created for us.
Right. Well, I really like that idea. I like that idea of being independent from them. And I remember from my earliest days of knowing you, you had a lot of insights into the way the internet works and ways around the setup systems. So,
but that's pretty much outdated at this point. That's for sure. But I'm gonna try to bring it together for us, and I that's why I'm hopeful, because, like you said, there's a lot of people who kind of sort of waking up, and it's hard to wake up. And I've been very how I am with people, gentle about it. That's why I wrote my books the way I did. I wanted to make them so that the Security Through Absurdity series, that people would read it, they'd personally get involved with the characters, and then they'd be curious about a fact in there. And I felt like I was slowly waking people up. I didn't want to do the and turn into, a whistleblower and they'd throw me under the bus and I'd be a crazy person. I think you gotta,
go the Susan Lindauer route.
I think, but like you said, this whole COVID year is kind of like a Band-Aid getting ripped off on top of this election thing. It's a Band-Aid getting ripped off, and people are like, they're kind of figuring out that something's not right. And I'm hoping that we can get some good people to join us and just get to solving problems as opposed to defending off things and trying to point at who the bad guy is. Let's just create the world around us that we want.
Well, I like your creativity.
Ignore them as they roll around, do whatever the heck they're doing, satanic or not. It's just like, I think we got to come up with our own solutions.
Right. Well, I like your creativity and innovation and your positive outlook. These are all good things and all things that we need. And I think that just as the bad guys are changing their game plan from time to time, we need to change our approach. I've tried to change my approach on a number of things and into more effective ways of dealing with life. So hats off to you for restarting Shadow Citizen with this type of outlook.
Thank you so much. And the other thing too is thank you for doing what you're doing, sticking to it with that COVID-19 book. I think everybody should be picking that thing up, especially if you got it as a PDF. That is amazing. Thank you so much. That's a gift to humanity. Thank you.
Well, that is really getting around because, I've given away thousands of copies, but I tell people whenever I send it out, I tell them to share it with whoever you want. So, and some people said, I already sent it to my entire email list. So I don't know, I'm guessing that tens of thousands of copies at least have been shared around the world. And I want that to go out to people. And again, everything in the book is documented and every hyperlink, at least at the time that I published it, was active, still active. So you click on the hyperlink, it'll take you right to the source. So it verifies everything that is said in the book. And it's not me, it's the experts and the scholars, scientists around the world. By the way, I want to mention this, that things that YouTube censored, like epidemiologist Knut Witkowski or doctors Erickson and Masihi, these people had millions of views and then YouTube took them down. Well, I went and I either found transcripts or I made transcripts and then I took key excerpts and put them into the book in hard copy and also in the digital versions. So I preserved stuff that Susan Wojcicki over at YouTube censored. If it was censored by, a lot of the important stuff, she censored it. They have so much nerve at YouTube that they even censored WABC 23 in California for simply having a 3 or 4 minute clip about the Erickson Masihi briefing where they said that we need to end the lockdown now. This lockdown is crazy. And these were frontline emergency doctors telling this to people. And they censored ABC 23 in Bakersfield, California. They took the YouTube took down their clip about that. That shows how desperate they are. There's total censorship. And Tucker Carlson, who's one of the few people in mainstream that I have some respect for, correctly said it, that, you know, science is not about censorship. Science is about considering different viewpoints. You know, Edison got the light bulb wrong thousands of times before he got it right. You don't get something right the first time. You need differing views from different experts and let people freely express themselves. And that's how you arrive at the truth about anything. Censoring people out of the box is not going to accomplish anything, not unless they're, you know, if they're advocating violence or child pornography, that's one thing. But if they're qualified scientists like Dolores Cahill, and they're telling you something's wrong with the official story, you need to allow people to voice that. And so what I've tried to do with the book is to give voice to all those people. And like I say, make it free digitally. And also, oh, by the way, on my website, I offer, if people want to buy their book in bulk, you want to give it to your friends, your family, your coworkers.
Yeah.
The more you buy, the cheaper the book gets. You buy like a full case, it's almost half price.
Awesome. All right, we will definitely put in the link to your website and you know, trying to drive traffic over to you. And so you are still selling the hard copies. So the PDFs.
Oh yeah, yeah. The book is gonna be in its third printing. We're doing the third printing this month.
Yeah.
I just want to keep the book out there in every form possible. And like I say, I also have an updates page, as I mentioned earlier, where anytime there's a new breaking story that seems important for people to know about COVID, I add that onto the updates page. Maybe eventually I'll do a revised edition of the book. But you know how much trouble that is. You got to revise your foot and note numbers, you revise your index, and it's a lot of work doing a revised edition of a book. But that day might come.
No. We've talked for what? About, oh my gosh, an hour and 20 minutes almost. And I'm just so thrilled to see you. Yeah. We're going to sign off, but I want to have you back on, and maybe we'll actually meet up and have tea and crumpets like the first time I met you.
I forgot about those crumpets. I forgot the crumpets. That's right.
Brought pastries and tea, and we brought it up because you had given that speech right outside of Boston at that hotel. I went and I went up to. I was so blown away. I was like, "Well, I need to know more about what you're talking about." So he said, "Oh yeah, come over." And so I came over, brought the pastries and some tea bags, and
I remember that. Yeah, and then you invited me down to talk to your book club.
Yes.
And I addressed your book club.
Yeah.
And so that was like the beginning of a long friendship.
And I'm so thrilled that you showed up. Thank you so much. And everybody, please go check out the link that I'm going to post underneath this, and go check out the book, COVID-19 Red Pilled. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, James Perloff. You are a hero, a national hero. Thank you so much.
No, but I'm not. But thank you for calling me that, and thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on this inaugural interview. If I can correctly call it that. I know you spoke to Haskell last night for Shadow Citizen. Thanks for reviving the show with such a positive plan for how you're going to do it.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye. See you at the next show. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Shadow Citizen with Rachael McIntosh.